June 2011. Standard & Poor's downgrades Greece from A to CCC. Not a recommendation, a death sentence. Within hours, Greek borrowing costs triple. The government can't afford new debt. Pensions stop. Hospitals run out of medicine. The economy enters freefall. Who is Standard & Poor's? 3 guys in an office in New York, reading the same public data everyone else reads, making a judgment call. Their opinion, not a fact. An opinion just determined whether 11 million Greeks could afford food next month. Welcome to Financial Rewind. I'm here to expose the gatekeepers nobody elected. And today, we're revealing the secret rating agencies, 3 private companies with the power to bankrupt nations, trigger financial crises, and destroy economies with a single downgrade, answerable to no government, no voters, and no one but their corporate clients. This is how you control the world without firing a shot. Not through conquest, through a 3-letter grade on a piece of paper. New York, 1909. John Moody publishes the first bond ratings. It's a simple idea. Analyze bonds, assign a grade. AAA is safest. D means default. Investors pay for the analysis. Moody makes money selling information. This works for decades. Rating agencies are like consumer reports for bonds, independent, paid by investors who want accurate information. Then, in the 1,970 seconds, the model flips. Instead of investors paying for ratings, the bond issuers start paying. The company selling bonds pays the rating agency to grade those bonds. It's like a restaurant paying the health inspector to grade its kitchen. The conflict of interest is obvious, but it becomes industry standard. Why? Because in 1975, the SEC designates certain firms as Nationally Recognized Statistical Rating Organizations, NRSROs. Only NRSROs can provide ratings that banks and pension funds are required to use for regulatory compliance. And who gets NRSRO status? 3 firms, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch. They become a government-sanctioned oligopoly. No competition, no oversight. Just 3 firms with the power to determine what's safe and what's not. And they're paid by the very entities they're supposed to objectively evaluate. The incentive structure is corrupted from day one. Here's how the system works, and why it gives 3 companies unimaginable power. A country wants to borrow money. It issues bonds. To sell those bonds, it needs a rating. Without a rating, institutional investors can't buy them. Regulations prohibit it. So the country pays Moody's, S&P, or Fitch, usually all 3, to rate the bonds. The agencies analyze the country's finances, debt levels, GDP growth, political stability, ability to repay. Then they assign a grade. AAA means virtually no risk of default. The country can borrow at low interest rates. AA, A, BBB, still investment grade. Pension funds and insurance companies can buy these bonds. B, B, C, C, junk status, high risk. Institutional investors can't hold them. Interest rates spike. The difference between BBB and BB, 1 notch on the scale, can double a country's borrowing costs. That 1-letter downgrade can mean the difference between fiscal stability and economic crisis. And it's decided by 3 people in a conference room, based on models they don't disclose, using assumptions they don't explain. With no democratic accountability, their opinion becomes reality, because the system is designed to make it so. Let's watch this power in action. The 2008 financial crisis. In 2006, mortgage-backed securities are flooding markets. Bundles of home loans packaged and sold to investors. The ratings? AAA. The same rating as U.S. Treasury bonds. Moody's rated 45,000 mortgage-backed securities as AAA in 2006 alone. 45,000. Standard & Poor's rated thousands more. The banks creating these securities? They paid the rating agencies to rate them. Moody's earned $900 million in 2006 from structured finance rating complex securities. If Moody's gave a harsh rating, the bank would take its business to S&P. If S&P was too tough, they'd go to Fitch. It's called ratings shopping, and it was standard practice. Internal emails later revealed the agencies knew the ratings were garbage. One S&P analyst in 2007, "We rate every deal. It could be structured by cows and we would rate it." A Moody's executive, "These ratings are based on flawed assumptions, but if we don't rate them, our competitors will." They rated junk as gold, because they were paid to. Then, in 2007 to 2008, the mortgages defaulted. The AAA securities became worthless overnight. Pension funds lost trillions, banks collapsed, the global economy froze. And the rating agencies, they downgraded everything after the crash, when it was too late, when the damage was done. Were they held accountable? Were executives prosecuted? No. The agencies claimed First Amendment protection. "These are opinions," they said, "not facts. Protected speech. The courts agreed. Moody's and S&P settled with the SEC for a combined $2.2 billion in 2015. No admission of wrongdoing. A fine equal to a few months' profit. And the system continued unchanged. Now let's talk about what this looks like when applied to countries, because sovereign ratings are even more powerful than corporate ratings. Greece, 2009. The government reveals it had been hiding debt for years. The true deficit is 12.7% of GDP, not the 6% reported. The rating agencies pounce. Moody's downgrades Greece from A1 to BA1 in June 2010. That's 6 notches, from investment grade to junk. In one move, S&P follows, then Fitch. Greece's borrowing costs explode. 10-year bonds go from 5% interest to 25% within months. The Greek government can't roll over debt at 25% interest. It's mathematically impossible to repay. So Greece goes to the IMF and EU for a bailout. The conditions: austerity, pension cuts, wage freezes, privatization. The Greek economy contracts 25% over 5 years. Unemployment hits 27%. Youth unemployment 58%. Suicide rates increase 35%. Families lose homes. Hospitals shut down. Malnutrition appears in a developed European country for the first time in decades, all triggered by a downgrade from 3 private companies. Now, Greece did hide its debt. The fiscal crisis was real. But here's the question. Why did the rating agencies give Greece an A rating for years while the debt was being hidden? Were they not doing their jobs? Or were they giving favorable ratings because Greece was a paying client? After the crisis, internal documents showed the agencies had concerns about Greek debt as early as 2006. But they didn't downgrade until 2010. 4 years of warning signs. Ignored. Until the crisis became public, then they downgraded savagely. The pattern repeats. Favorable ratings when paid, harsh downgrades when crisis hits. Here's the global impact. Spain, Portugal, Ireland, the dominoes. After Greece, the agencies turned their attention to other European countries with debt problems. Spain, 2011, S&P downgrades from AA to AA. Borrowing costs spike. Unemployment rises to 26%. Portugal, downgraded to junk in 2011. Had to take an EU, IMF bailout. Austerity followed. Economy contracted for 3 years. Ireland, downgraded after its banking crisis. Forced into bailout. Pension funds lost billions. Italy, downgraded in 2011 despite having a primary budget surplus. The downgrade triggered a political crisis. The elected government fell. An unelected technocrat was installed. Every downgrade created a self-fulfilling prophecy. Country has debt problems. Rating agencies downgrade. Borrowing costs spike. Debt becomes more expensive. Country can't repay. Crisis worsens. Agencies downgrade further. The ratings don't just reflect reality. They create it. And the agencies face no consequences for triggering crises. But here's where it gets truly revealing. The United States, 2011, the 5th of August 2011. Standard & Poor's does the unthinkable, downgrades the United States from AAA to AA+. The first downgrade in U.S. history. The reason? Political dysfunction. The debt ceiling crisis where Congress nearly refused to authorize borrowing. S&P's warning. The political system is less stable, less effective, and less predictable than we thought. Markets panic. The Dow drops 635 points the next trading day. Treasury yields do nothing. Wait, Treasury yields should have spiked, right? A downgrade means higher borrowing costs. But they didn't. Yields fell. Investors bought more U.S. bonds, not fewer. Because markets don't actually care about ratings. They care about fundamentals. And the U.S., with its own currency and central bank, can't involuntarily default. The rating was irrelevant. The market ignored it. But here's what's important. S&P faced immediate retaliation. The Justice Department launched an investigation into S&P's role in the 2008 crisis. Coincidentally, days after the downgrade. The investigation led to a $1.5 billion settlement in 2015, the largest penalty ever for a rating agency. Was it justice or punishment for downgrading the U.S. government? The timing suggests the latter. The message was clear. You can downgrade Greece, you can downgrade Spain, but downgrade the United States, and there will be consequences. The rating agencies learned the lesson. They've never downgraded the U.S. again, despite debt rising from $14 trillion in 2011 to $34 trillion today. Political interference, selective enforcement, the facade of objectivity cracked. Let's talk about developing countries, because the power dynamic is even more brutal. When S&P downgrades the United States, markets ignore it. When S&P downgrades Zambia, the country collapses. Why? Because Zambia borrows in dollars. It can't print dollars. A downgrade means it literally can't access the currency it needs to function. In 2020, Zambia was downgraded to default status. Borrowing costs became infinite, no one would lend. The government couldn't import fuel, medicine, food. The kwacha collapsed. Inflation spiked. The economy contracted. All because 3 analysts in New York decided Zambia was too risky. The same pattern in Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Ghana, Lebanon. Downgrade borrowing costs, spike crisis, IMF bailout with conditions, austerity, economic contraction, another downgrade. The rating agencies are gatekeepers to the dollar system. Developing countries must pass through them to access global capital, and the agencies hold all the power. Here's the data that exposes the dysfunction. Timing of downgrades? Rating agencies are almost always late. They downgrade after crises become public, not before. Enron was rated investment grade 4 days before bankruptcy. Lehman Brothers was rated A just months before collapse. Greece was rated A while hiding billions in debt. The agencies don't predict crises. They announce them after everyone already knows. Accuracy. A 2010 study found that rating agencies correctly predicted defaults only 40% of the time for sovereign debt. That's worse than a coin flip. For corporate debt, they're right about 60% of the time. Better, but not exactly Oracle of Delphi. Conflicts of interest. Moody's revenue model, 90% from issuers paying for ratings. S&P, 85% from issuers. Fitch, similar. They're paid by the entities they rate. The conflict couldn't be more obvious, yet they're treated as objective arbiters by regulation. So, could this be fixed? Yes, multiple solutions exist. None have been implemented. Option 1, investor pays model. Go back to the original system. Investors pay for ratings, not issuers. This removes the conflict of interest. Agencies have incentive to be accurate, not favorable. But investors don't want to pay. They've gotten free ratings for 40 years. Why start now? Option 2, public rating agency. Create a government-run rating agency with no profit motive. Just analyze bonds objectively. No client relationships, no revenue concerns. But which government? If it's U.S. run, it's biased toward U.S. interests. If it's UN run, it's politically captured. Option 3, remove regulatory reliance on ratings. Stop requiring institutions to use ratings for compliance. Let the market decide. If ratings are useful, people will use them. If not, they'll be ignored. This is the simplest solution. But regulators won't do it, because then they'd have to actually supervise banks instead of outsourcing judgment to rating agencies. Option 4, competition. Break the oligopoly. Allow new rating agencies. But regulations make this nearly impossible. NRSRO status is nearly impossible to obtain. The SEC has approved only a handful since 1975. And even if new agencies emerged, they'd face the same incentive structure, issuers paying for ratings. The problem isn't the companies, it's the system. Here's what you need to understand. Rating agencies aren't objective analysts. They're political actors. Their ratings reflect power dynamics more than financial reality. When they downgrade a weak country like Zambia, the country collapses. When they downgrade a powerful country like the United States, they face retaliation. Their role isn't to provide information, it's to enforce hierarchy. Strong countries get favorable treatment. Weak countries get harsh judgment. Rich corporations get ratings shopping. Poor countries get one shot. It's not analysis. It's power, dressed up as objectivity. And because it's dressed as technical judgment, no one questions it. The rating agency said so, ends the discussion. But these are private companies, paid by clients, with terrible track records, protected by governments, answerable to no one. They decide which countries can borrow, at what cost, under what conditions. They've triggered sovereign defaults, forced austerity, collapsed governments. 3 companies, based in New York, rating the entire world. Let's talk about the human cost. Greece, 2012. A retired teacher receives his pension. Before the crisis, 1,200 euros per month. After downgrades and bailout conditions, 600 euros per month. His rent didn't have, his medicine didn't have, his food costs didn't have. He's 68 years old, worked for 40 years. His pension was cut because 3 analysts in New York decided Greece's bonds were junk. He didn't vote for them, didn't elect them, can't remove them. But their opinion determined whether he eats next month. Multiply this by millions. Across Greece, Spain, Portugal, Ireland, Zambia, Sri Lanka. The rating agencies don't see this. They see spreadsheets, debt to GDP ratios, deficit projections. They issue downgrades, then go home to New York. The pensioners left behind? Not their problem. Here's the mechanism that makes it permanent. Once a country is downgraded, getting upgraded again is nearly impossible. The rating agencies require sustained improvement over multiple years. But how do you sustain improvement when borrowing costs are 20%? When you're forced into austerity that contracts the economy? It's a trap. The downgrade makes recovery harder. The lack of recovery justifies keeping the downgrade. Greece was downgraded to junk in 2010. Didn't return to investment grade until 2023. 13 years. An entire generation lost. Youth unemployment, brain drain, demographic collapse. Because the rating agencies wouldn't upgrade until sustained improvement. But the conditions created by the downgrade prevented sustained improvement. Catch 2-2. So where does this lead? The rating agency system is breaking down. Slowly, but visibly. Countries are bypassing it. China created its own rating agencies. Russia did the same after being downgraded. Developing countries are borrowing in yuan, avoiding dollar markets and Western rating agencies altogether. The Belt and Road loans from China don't require Moody's approval. The agency's power is eroding, but not gone. As long as institutional investors require ratings for regulatory compliance, the agencies have power. As long as pension funds and insurance companies can only buy investment grade, the agencies decide what's investment grade. The system perpetuates itself until it doesn't. Until enough countries opt out. Until enough crises caused by bad ratings force reform. But reform comes slowly, and the agencies fight it. Because they've built an empire on their government-granted oligopoly, and empires don't surrender willingly. June 2011. 3 people in a New York office downgraded Greece. Within hours, 11 million people's lives changed. Not because of an election, not because of a war, because of an opinion. An opinion from a private company paid by the entity being rated, with a track record of failure, protected by regulators, and answerable to no democratic process. History doesn't repeat. It reveals. And right now it's revealing a simple truth. 3 companies decide which countries live or die. Not governments, not voters, not markets. Moody's, Standard & Poor's, Fitch. Their opinion becomes your reality. Welcome to the rating system. The one where 3 private firms in New York hold more power than most elected governments. The one that triggers crises, enforces austerity, and collapses economies with a single letter grade. The one you didn't vote for, can't audit, can't remove. The secret gatekeepers of global finance. The ones who decide whether your country gets to borrow or starves.